Welcome to episode 136 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. Baltimore Ravens are moving on in the playoffs. We're recording this on Wednesday. It's the 13th. It's bright and early. Getting this out a little bit later in the week, but very happy to get this episode out because after suffering two early exits in the playoffs the past 2 years, the Ravens finally found a way to win a playoff game, and it is their first playoff win since 2014, if you can believe that. All of this nonsense that we've been hearing for the past year about Lamar Jackson, pretty much a full calendar year, I might add. It was January 11th, 2020, was when they suffered that divisional round loss to the Tennessee Titans. And almost a full calendar year later, Sunday was the 10th, January 10th, 2021, they faced the same team, same thing on the line, different location, and this time the Ravens come out on top. And that entire year, it was nothing but Lamar Jackson can't win a playoff game. Somehow they threw in he can't win a big game at all, and we discussed this many times, but what do you define as a big game? And every time you countered the argument, the goalposts kept shifting. But that's the way it goes. He won a playoff game. They've already shifted again. We knew it was coming. It wasn't just Lamar. It was an entire team thing. They said the Ravens and Lamar, they couldn't come from behind. They couldn't win a game where they're trailing by more than one possession. Ravens found themselves down 10-0 early. They came back. They win the game. They squashed every single narrative that was thrown at them this past year, found a way to win, and now they're moving on. They got Buffalo in the next round. Before we get into the fine details, Jake, raw reaction, your emotions on Sunday. I myself, I was on edge the entire time. I was sweating. I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah, I think everybody at some point was, I even texted you at one point on Sunday. It was probably when they were down. First I texted you saying this is the most nervous that I've been in a long time, which was true. It was the most nervous that I've been in years. And simply for the fact that, like we've talked about before, the last time the Ravens had won a playoff game before Sunday, we were both freshmen in college, respectively. So it had been a while, and you couple that along with the Ravens since they've been getting back into the playoffs, losing both times with Lamar Jackson's first two playoff appearances in both games. The first game was just a complete disaster offensively. And then last year, they put up all the yards in garbage time essentially and kept moving the ball down the field, but just couldn't finish. It looked like the defense gets the first drive. They get the first stop. The Ravens get the ball back. They can't do anything with it. And then they turn the ball over on the next drive. Just a completely unnecessary deep shot, by the way. I don't care about the fact that it was a bad throw. That's the reason why I texted you. My next text to you was it's happening again, because they were down 10-0. You just found yourself in it was deja vu all over again almost. But you give all the credit in the world to Lamar, to the coaching staff, Greg Roman, for not panicking in that moment. And I think that's going to do so much more for this team going forward in the playoffs, whether it's this Saturday or even beyond. Just like we said last year, some of the guys even kind of admitted it. They overlooked the Titans and maybe looked ahead a little bit. This time, this was step one to win the first playoff game and get that monkey off your back. Now, anything else this season is icing on the cake to me, because now they've done that. I'm still not expecting this team. They're looking like one of the best teams in the NFL right now. I'm not going to sit here and say right now that I expect a Super Bowl championship at this point, but anything else that we're going to get along this ride, I'm just enjoying, because I wanted that playoff win so bad for all the reasons I just said, because it had been so long. And now that we finally have that, the rest of this postseason is just going to be such a joy to watch. And I'm very happy and excited about this Saturday's game.
Right. I really agree with that last point. It just felt like, especially early in this game when they fell behind 10-0, and you're right, you got to credit them for not panicking, but it felt like they were just playing uptight. The defense was okay. They gave up the touchdown drive, but they didn't look incompetent. Titans made some great plays on that drive, moved the ball, and then you had a questionable touchdown where, they could have thrown an offensive pass interference. They didn't. I think it's a borderline call. I think there's a lot of evidence there that it was offensive pass interference, but they didn't throw the flag. It is what it is. Rather have that call happen in the first quarter than the fourth quarter when you can't do anything to make up for it. It just still, in the first quarter, they go behind 10-0. They looked uptight. They just didn't look – they looked nervous. The play calling, everything from the play calling to the way they were running the plays, everything. It just Mark Andrews had a terrible drop, was that first drive. They were going to convert on third down, and he dropped it. So that right there is like, all right, here we go again. And then you get the interception. So I think once they got on the board and then Lamar breaks that 48-yard touchdown run on the scramble and turns what should have been a broken play into a game-changing touchdown, the switch was flipped at that point, and the mood was lifted. And from that point on, the Ravens just were completely in control, even though the score was close. So we talk about this not winning a playoff game and how it's all about Lamar and everything, but this has weighed heavy on not just him, but the entire team. To get that win, I think it really boosts the mood across the board. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come out in this Buffalo game and look really loose from the start. If they start with the ball, wouldn't be surprised to see them go down the field and punch it in for a touchdown right from the jump. No real jitters, no nerves or anything getting in the way.
I think what I was just blown away by is just and the announcers and I didn't even realize that like a lot of the starters along the Tennessee defensive line were not playing, including Jadeveon Clowney on the edge, but a lot of their interior guys were out as well. I was really surprised at how early on the defensive line of Tennessee was just manhandling the interior offensive line, particularly of the Ravens. And Lamar, he got sacked 4 times, I think, in the first half, like 5 times overall. I know that was the final line there. But, that I think despite how McCary has really solved the snapping issues and how Ben Powers has, stepped in admirably, and he's not a Pro Bowl guard, but I think he's held his own at least. I think the interior offensive line might be an area that needs addressed this offseason, just because you don't want to see Lamar, especially in a playoff game, taking all those hits early on and not having any time. It just seemed like it kept happening over and over again. But I mean, by that same point, I give a lot of credit to the offensive coaching staff adjusting the blocking schemes, realizing that, okay, this drop back, what we're trying to do here, it just isn't working. And they shifted the blocking schemes as the game went along. You saw that the first drive, Pat Ricard was a huge part of that. They started using the receivers. Everybody was a blocker. Willie Snead was getting in there too. So that was an ugly part of the game, the offensive line in particular. I think that's kind of why the Ravens found themselves in a deficit early, is because they were losing the battle at the line of scrimmage, but in the second half, that completely turned around.
So this is something I wanted to mention in regards to Greg Roman, what you were just talking about. And you're absolutely right. Early on, the run game was not working at all, and the Titans had seemingly completely, sniffed it out. They weren't falling for the read option. Whether Lamar was keeping it or handing it off, they had multiple guys there to make the tackle, and they didn't give up anything off the read option. 3 yards, 4 yards at most, and that was very rare. They were doing a great job to shut that down. You get to the end of the first half, Lamar, again, I cannot say enough about this game-breaking touchdown. Let's just talk about that, because for as many highlight reel plays as Lamar has had in his career, this one in the playoffs, that scenario down 10-3 at the time, a broken play, and he scrambles, gets out of the pocket, and you see him running on TV, and where the camera frame is for the TV, you can see he's easily going to get the first down. So I'm already ecstatic. I'm already going crazy. Oh, thank God, that's Lamar, that's the MVP, turning nothing into something. All of a sudden, he crosses that yellow line, and you see nothing but green grass in front of him. And, oh, my God, he's really going to turn this broken play where he probably should have been sacked into a touchdown. And he did just that. He made the Titans' defense look stupid. For as well as the Titans had game planned, or seemingly game planned, to stop this Ravens offense. Again, they were all over the read option, weren't giving it up. There's one aspect of Lamar's game that you just simply cannot game plan for and cannot do anything to stop, and that's his just raw physical athletic ability. And you saw it right there on the scramble. He escapes the pocket. Half a second later, he might have been sacked, whatever it is. He makes the right move there to get out of the pocket, and then from that point on, you don't have an answer because he's faster than everyone else on the field. So not only did he get the first down, he gets the touchdown, changes the entire game, and that's just something Titans, anyone else in the league, they cannot game plan for it. You can you can stack the box, you can take away the middle of the field, you can do all this stuff that you think is going to, stifle them and shut them down, but you're never going to be able to take away that one or two plays a game where he just makes you go, oh my God, he's superhuman. And if you're an opposing defense, you just got to hope that those plays don't result in a touchdown.
And that wasn't really something, there was this long stretch of games this season, especially early on. And I mean, even as they were going through that losing streak where we just weren't seeing a lot of this from Lamar Jackson, the long runs. And I think he was asked yesterday if anything was different from now and between, if anything changed from now going back to early in the season when the struggles were happening. And, he kind of admitted that he was being a little conservative and taking too many sacks and standing in the pocket too long when his first and second reads weren't there. And I think now we're starting to see more, if he's not seeing something right away, he's doing everything he can to break loose. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen every time. We saw that in the first quarter, but if the Ravens coaching staff can outcoach the opponent and they can formulate the right blocking schemes against whatever talent they're playing on the defensive line, and Lamar, gets out on the outside, anything's possible. And it's not just that play. I mean, I think it was like a third down call in the first quarter that got that drive going, or maybe it was a different drive, but he scrambled to his right on third down. I think it was 3rd and 7. And right before he gets out of bounds, he sidearms the ball almost to Andrews, who's, 15 yards down the field, and he catches it right in bounds. So just love the attitude, love the edge, and also bleep Malcolm Butler. There is no reason under any circumstance. I don't care what bad blood you have against your opponent. And there really is no bad. The Titans have started everything that's happened in this rivalry to this point so far this year. There's no reason to be flipping off your opponent in the middle of a game. So Malcolm Butler, bleep you, and enjoy watching from your couch this weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the chippiness here, and really just when it's all the Ravens get the last laugh here, this one in the postseason, and just look at all the series of events dating back to last year's playoff game, to the regular season this year, to this game. It was a very satisfying win, to say the least, for not just because it was the first one in a while for the Ravens, but all the other, extracurriculars, as we like to say. But to get back to this Roman point, and because I wanted to stop there and talk about the Lamar touchdown, just with how game-breaking it was, but the Ravens start the second half with the ball. The entire first half, besides a couple, spark plays here and there where they turned it on, they were really lackluster on offense. And again, that read option just wasn't working for them. And you could tell when they don't have that, when they don't have their backbone, they become just a completely different offense. And they don't necessarily go into panic mode, but they got to start going to plan B, C, D, and it's not as effective. It's not the well-oiled machine that we've seen here in this win streak down the stretch. But to start the second half, Greg Roman, what does he dial up out of the break? Come out, and they start throwing these little short 4 or 5 yard passes, which are basically a substitute for a run. A safe little out pass. The Titans were not on it at all. I mean, Pat Ricard caught 3 passes on that drive. Defenders did not pay him any mind to cover him off the line of scrimmage every single time. So he picked up, 5 yards, 6 yards. One he took down, it bulldozed somebody, got a first down. Andrews caught a little pass, a short one, a 5 yard one. So it was like they said, all right, we're not going to run the ball as effectively. So to help jumpstart this drive, I'm just going to replace what we would normally get, with a run 5 yards, 4 or 5 yards. Let's just throw a little short pass and jumpstart the drive. And it was very slow. It wasn't the most satisfying drive, but in the end, they end up scoring a touchdown. They punch it in. I got to give Roman a ton of credit there because he could have just defaulted and said, no, we're going to stick with the read option. I haven't heard his name mentioned too much. Not surprised. He was the scapegoat this entire season when things weren't going well. It was all Greg Roman's fault. None of it was the players' fault for some reason. It was all Greg Roman in the eyes of the fan base. Well, make some key adjustments. No one's talking about Greg Roman. Again, not surprised, but please, give him his credit because the last 2 playoff losses, whether it was Roman or Marty Mornhinweg, when the Ravens went down, they had no plan B. And if they did have a plan B, it wasn't a good one. So for once, when it mattered most, the Ravens offensive coordinator actually, came up big.
Right, and I think that certainly shouldn't be forgotten because of all the struggles they faced coming back out of deficits, and it says a lot about what they've learned. And I think it was a very a smart thing to do, like you were saying. I don't really think that they were throwing passes to Ricard. Hollywood Brown was going on some end around type plays or backwards passes. I'm sure there are instances throughout the regular season where they've done it, but not heavy doses of that type of stuff. So. Roman throws a curveball at the Tennessee defense that the Ravens don't typically do a lot of. We know that, against the pass, the Titans have really struggled. So not too surprising that the Ravens found a little hole there. And I think it says a lot, too. People haven't been talking about it since the game. Some people, I guess, just don't trust Greg Roman. And, we saw the same thing with Marty Mornhinweg, whether that was granted or not. We saw a lot of similar complaints about Cam Cameron when he was around. So I think, that the coaching staff is going to be the scapegoat a lot. And I think there's still, who knows if the Ravens go on all the way and win a championship, maybe the opinions and the narratives about Greg Roman might change a little bit and he might be shown a little bit more respect, but it takes a lot. And I think this could be the start of maybe them giving a little bit more credit. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not too surprised that we haven't been hearing a lot about Greg Roman since the game.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm sitting here and telling you Greg Roman's the greatest offensive coordinator of all time. Like he clearly has some things that make you scratch your head, and I think some of the early season failures are on his shoulders, but by no means is it solely his problem like it was presented to be. It's just a lazy take that comes from super fans, and they just it's never Lamar's fault. He can do no wrong. It's never the players' fault because we love the players, so we have to blame someone. It's going to be the coaching staff. It's just lazy. It's boring. It's tired. Conversely, here, while Roman was a part of their failures earlier this year, he was a big part of them finally getting over the hump and winning this game. So. That's why I say you got to give him his credit. Because if he's calling the plays, if he did not call that up and they tried to stick with the read option, the Ravens are talented enough. Maybe, Dobbins, Edwards, or Lamar, they bust one for a long run. You keep rolling the dice. It's bound to happen at some point, but overall, you're not going to probably wouldn't have seen much consistent success with it. One more thing on the offense, and then we'll get to the defense, which was just, wow, amazing defensive effort. Marquise Brown, not the best season. We know that. Talked about it plenty of times. The drops, the comments after games, just a rough year for him. But he's played in 2 playoff games so far in his very young career, and he has just gone off in both of them against the Titans. 235 yards on 14 receptions. That's total in both games. He's come up big. It felt like last year he was the only one that was really playing well in the loss last year from an offensive standpoint. The rest of the receiving core was dropping passes left and right. He was catching everything. He was catching passes one-handed. And then this year, He's finding a way to get open. He's finding a way to make the big plays. And it wasn't just coming up with big catches. It was finding a way to get yards after the catch, something we really haven't seen from him at all, despite being 100% healthy this year.
Yeah, I was still stealing my thunder there with some of what I was getting ready to say, but I mean, that you're exactly right. I think that might have been kind of the idea when the Ravens drafted Hollywood is, okay, this guy's not going to catch 10 passes a game and he's not going to put up over 100 yards receiving every game. But when we need plays in big games, he has the ability to do that. And he's certainly proven that over the first 2 playoff games. I didn't even realize I knew he played well in both games, but I didn't have that total yardage total that you just said, the 235, I believe it was. But yeah, just fantastic. He's come up when nobody's been playing well. And then in this game, when the offense started clicking, he seemed to be the biggest part of it, aside from the running game and everything Lamar did. He's not going to, physically overmatch the defenders all the time. He just doesn't have that natural size, but he's got just blazing speed. And when you need a long play and you need something done on offense, you need a play to be made, he has that ability, despite his size, his small stature, to fool defenders and somehow make a play, get open. Maybe if they get him some help, well, obviously not the appropriate time to talk about the 2021 Ravens because we're still in the 2020 season, but who knows with another weapon, if they can find somebody else that complements him better, maybe he can put up better numbers in the regular season so that all the intention's not on him, but he's certainly proved that when they need plays to be made, he can do that for him. And I think that was exactly the thought when they took him in the first round.
Let's go to the defense because they were the real MVPs of the day. Give credit to Lamar, Hollywood, Roman. They did enough. They were good. But the defense, they were just on another level. And we knew coming into this game, it was the matchup we wanted. Derrick Henry, 2,000 yards rushing this year. It's been a thorn in the Ravens' side in the other 2 matchups this year in the calendar year of 2020. And he's going up against the Ravens again. Going to have a big game, right? Well, hold on a second. Ravens defense is at full strength. They're completely healthy. They've got their guys that they added this offseason, Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe, both playing alongside Brandon Williams. You got the 3 big hitters there, the Monstars, as they like to call themselves. And the supporting cast was there too. Everyone was healthy across the board. Secondary, Jimmy Smith was back. The Ravens' defense was at full strength to stop this Titans offense. In the end, I think we saw who was truly better. When both sides are completely healthy, I think it's no denying that the Ravens defense has the upper hand because they held King Henry to just 40 yards on 18 carries. 40 yards in a game that, mind you, this game was close the entire time. The Titans were either ahead or they were only trailing by 1 possession. No reason to abandon the run. Henry got his carries. Probably, he finished with 18. Maybe would have liked to have seen him go over 20. But he had his opportunities, and he finished with 40 yards. So completely shut down. You watched him every single time he carried the ball. Ravens defense was right there. They plugged all the gaps. They swarmed to the ball. And when it came time to tackling Henry, when it came time to getting him on the ground, they didn't flinch, and they made the play. And there's so many guys that you can just point to on this defense that had just a great game. But I got to start with Pernell McPhee because we didn't talk about him at all coming into the season because he left the 2019 season with an injury. Come back this year, no one really mentioned his name in the offseason. And, they add Calais Campbell. Matt Judon comes back on the franchise tag. You're talking about Tyus Bowser. Can he step up? You're talking about Jalen Ferguson. Can he take a jump in year 2? No one talked about Pernell McPhee as an edge rusher. And he's played, first of all, the entire season healthy. He's been in there, and he's been more than a rotational piece. Like, he's been a go-to guy. And while this was a breakout game for him, like a game that took you back to his first stint with the Ravens where he was, in his prime, he's been consistent this year. And for him to come up big in the playoffs like this, as a veteran player, to really lead the way along with Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Derek Wolfe, it was just a huge performance. And I mean, he made whoever he was going up against in his one-on-one matchups on the offensive line, he made them look stupid consistently. I mean, he was beating them before the ball was even handed off to Henry. He was there. So, Jake, your impressions stopping Derrick Henry here, and Pernell McPhee, anyone else on this defensive front that stood out to you performance-wise?
Well, no, I didn't hear you give me any credit there, because if you remember last week, I was suspecting that Derrick Henry was not going to have a big game, and it didn't really have anything to do with the girth and the size of the Ravens defense, the defensive line in particular. I just thought that he had run the ball so much in the final month of the season. I just thought he would be a little beat up for this game. And I think Jamal Lewis went over 2,000 yards one season as well. And when the Ravens, they might have played Tennessee that season in the playoffs, they were able to completely stop Jamal Lewis. So, even a 2,000-yard rusher is certainly a great accomplishment, and hats off to King Henry, as they like to say down there, for accomplishing that. But I think a negative of rushing for 2,000 is you're going to be beat up come playoff time. And I don't know how much that contributed to the struggles. I think it was probably a little bit of both of Henry's, just the nature of where he was at in the season, and the Ravens defensive line being fresh and having two key players in there that they didn't have the first time these two teams lined up earlier in the year. And as we saw as the game went on in that game, it wore the Ravens defensive line out, and Henry went haywire in the second half. So this is the exact reason why they threw all that money, or made the trade rather, for Calais Campbell, despite him being in his mid-30s, is because he's just a mammoth of a man that can constantly, get in there. And it's not just him, it's the entire defensive line. And I had to laugh. I was watching Inside the NFL last night on Showtime, because I like to watch the highlight packages, especially after the Ravens get a win in the playoffs. But Phil Simms, he was trying to explain why the Ravens defensive line did what they did. And he was like, well, you see, they've got asses that are this wide on the defensive line. And he spread his arms out the entire way. And they've got like 6 of them. And when you get them all together, there's nowhere for Derrick Henry to run. And I think it's simple math in a way. There is something to that. You talk about Derrick Henry being this 240-pound running back. Well, the Ravens just have so much girth on the defensive line when they're all in there. So I don't want to take too much credit for my prediction, because a lot of that has to do with this defensive line being in full strength. And when it matters in the playoff game, this strength of the team that everybody was talking about, among the best units in football, not just the defensive line, but the entire defense as a whole, they came through. So, that was probably one of the most impressive things about Sunday, was just seeing how they absolutely, stopped Derrick Henry in his tracks the entire afternoon long. And it was very satisfying to see him upset on the sidelines as Vrabel was trying to have a chat with him.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me at a couple more points about Derrick Henry here. And you saw Vrabel kind of, talking to him and barking at him as they're walking back to the bench. Well, here's my thing. You can say Derrick Henry wasn't having that much success. That's fine. Ravens defense was certainly performing well. But if I remember correctly, the Titans were in multiple 3rd and short situations throughout this game. A handful, 3, 4, maybe at least. It wasn't until the fourth quarter, when their last drive, that 3rd and short, which they ultimately didn't get, they had to go for it on 4th and short, was the first time that they handed the ball off to Henry in a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 in the game. They were in a couple other ones earlier, and they passed. They had Tannehill roll out and try to pass. And I was just stunned. It happened, the first time it happened in the game, I said something to my dad. I said, how could they not give the ball to Derrick Henry on 3rd and short? It's like a free first down. And, well, I guess I was wrong, because they finally did it late in the game, and the Ravens defense was all over it. It might have been a 3rd and 2. They gave up a yard, brought up a 4th and 1. Tannehill sneaks it and converts to keep the drive alive. But, Vrabel's barking at Henry, but Henry's got a right to be mad too, because with these 3rd and short situations to keep drives alive, hey man, you haven't put the ball in my hands. And you can say that it's performance-based and I'm not performing well, but I'm still Derrick Henry. I still rush for 2,000 yards. I'm still the size of a linebacker in this league. You're not going to give me the ball on 3rd and 1. What's going on here? I think it goes both ways, and I was stunned that they just did not go to him more often. Again, he finishes with 18 carries. As I said before, it could have easily been over 20, closer to 25. It was a close game. It's not like Tannehill had to throw a lot because they were trailing by a lot. And then the second one is Derrick Henry's longest run of the day was for 8 yards. He did not run for more than that. Most of his runs were 2-3 yards, maybe 4. Ravens were all over it. His longest run came late in the game, second half. Found a little bit of a hole and looked like he was going to explode through it. And Derek Wolfe got his hand in there and tripped him up. I think it was Derek Wolfe. Brought him down, grabbed the shoelace, got him with the desperation tackle. Now, I have not looked at the all-22 footage. I have not seen an overhead angle of this, but rewatch that play, and you can see nothing but green grass in front of Derrick Henry there. The secondary, I would love to see how the secondary was lined up. Did they have a safety back there? Did they have both safeties back there? Or was Deshaun Elliott brought up to stack the box? Was Chuck Clark on the other side of the field to help in coverage? Because I can't say for sure, but it would not surprise me if Derek Wolfe's desperation shoestring tackle saved the touchdown there. Because to me, on the TV angle, it looked like if Henry, wasn't tripped up there, he would have ran for not only the first down and a huge play, but potentially a touchdown, and that could have changed everything in this game. So it's a game of inches, as we like to say, and that time the Ravens won that matchup. It's big plays like that go unrecognized. There was plenty of other big plays. I want to go to you. I don't want to steal the thunder here. Any other big plays on this defense you wanted to mention? There's a couple for me in the secondary.
I had one. I think it might have been actually the same drive there that you were talking about on the longest Derrick Henry run of the afternoon. I think it might have been a couple of plays after that. It was a 3rd and 2 play, and Deshaun Elliott came up and made a huge hit on Jonnu Smith to make him drop the ball, and I thought that was a huge play right there. I mean, Deshaun Elliott, very happy for a guy there too that it's taken him a long time to get on the field in his young career because of injuries. And yeah, he's not like a Pro Bowl safety at this point in his career, but certainly he's impressed me with, his first full season as a starter. Not only has he stayed healthy, but he's played well, and he's got, that hard hitter aggression in him, makes a lot of hard hits that us in Baltimore love to see all the time. He's a guy that, hasn't had the loudest season. He's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Chuck Clark kind of has in a way too. These guys don't put up all of these sexy stats, but both have played crucial roles. And I think Deshaun Elliott deserves a lot of praise for what he's done in his young career, first season starting the whole year.
Absolutely. That was one of the ones I was going to mention. And that was actually right before Mike Vrabel's controversial decision here. 10 minutes left in the game. I'm looking at the play-by-play right now. Ryan Tannehill, 3rd and 2. Here again, this goes back to what I was saying. 3rd and 2 at the Ravens 40. They're in Ravens territory. They don't hand it off to Derrick Henry, first of all. And then second of all, try to complete it to Jonnu Smith, Deshaun Elliott. Perfectly timed hit. Glad you mentioned that. That was one of the secondary plays I wanted to mention. Breaks up the pass. Perfectly executed. But then Mike Vrabel decides to punt at the Ravens 40. You're down 4 points, 10 minutes left in the game. And you punt? You're in Ravens territory? I know you don't have a great kicker. Go for it. What's going on here? Just very, very puzzling. Thank God they decided to punt. I'll take that every day. But, man, that was just insane that they decided to punt. But credit to Deshaun Elliott. The other one I wanted to mention, I believe, was on their previous drive or earlier in the game. Marlon Humphrey, who had been targeted pretty early and often in this game, and he got beat on the touchdown and just on a couple plays on that drive. And I think pretty sure the TV analysts were talking about it, how that matchup between him and A.J. Brown, it was a matchup to keep your eyes on. And I said, hey, if they want to keep throwing at Marlon Humphrey, let them do it. Like, there's no offense to Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith, and other guys in the secondary. They're very talented. But if Marlon Humphrey's the guy that you're going to try to pick on, good luck. That's all I'll say. He comes up with a play. I believe it was a third down play. It should have been converted for a first down. Humphrey, he's all over the receiver. I think it was A.J. Brown. Might have been somebody else. He's all over him like a shadow. I mean, he's just draped all over this guy without it being pass interference. As close as you can physically be on somebody in the NFL as a defensive back without it being a penalty. Humphrey just does that better than anyone. He's the most physical coverage guy I see in the NFL. And then Marcus Peters finishes it all off, and this is how we'll end our defensive discussion here. Marcus Peters, interception, gets a little bit of help because I think Khalif Raymond falls down there. Had he stayed up, we've got a contested ball there where maybe Peters could break it up with a hit or stick an arm in there, but he falls down. It's an easy pick for Peters. That'll lead us to our next discussion here. The antics, the stomping on the logo. I think you asked the question last week, Jake, do you think the Ravens would consider doing that in the game? I said no, but they end up doing it. Your thoughts on that whole exchange there, the Peters interception, no hesitation. They go right to the midfield logo.
Well, before I touch on the interception, I wanted to mention that like Peters and Humphrey complement each other so well because when you think about it, they're really the exact opposite type of cornerback. Humphrey doesn't always get the interceptions, but, he's always there ready to make a play. He's very physical, jumping on top of guys all the time, always trying to knock the ball out. And Peters doesn't like to get as physical with receivers, but he's a ball hawk. And when you need him to make a play in a big moment, he comes through. Sometimes he struggles in coverage. You don't always like his tackling skills, but he's, again, a playmaker that on both sides of the ball, the Ravens have been seeking a lot in the secondary, particularly since Ed Reed retired. On the interception, absolutely loved it. Not only did it completely seal the game, and you just said it there, immediately, this is what I love about Marcus Peters. Immediately after that happened, it's like almost as soon as his body hit the ground and he was down, no hesitation, gets back up and starts running towards the middle of the field. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I've probably watched the video of the dance probably over 100 times now. I'll probably watch it. It's on my Snapchat story. I'll probably watch it several more times before Saturday and all throughout the offseason, really, for that matter. He's the perfect player for the Ravens. I know he's gotten a bad rap in other places that he's played in the past. And sometimes, he's just so emotional and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I think sometimes, even though he has good intentions, just by his nature, maybe his actions aren't always viewed positively. But I had absolutely no problem with this at all. I mean, like I said earlier, all the drama that happened this season between the Ravens and the Titans, Tennessee started. I don't blame the Ravens at all for how they acted. You're going to show us up on our field. If we get the opportunity and we take care of business, we're going to do the same thing to you. That was a long ramble, but I know you probably have a lot of thoughts on this too. But that was probably one of the most satisfying moments in a Ravens game that I felt in a long time. And then a couple minutes later, Lamar goes on that long run and just kind of falls backward to stay in bounds and let the clock continue to run. Just a great moment and felt so good after all the heartbreak of last year's playoff loss and then losing to the Titans again in November.
The Peters interception was just such a release because at that moment they converted on 4th and short. They wasted a lot of time, by the way, to get to that point. And I was feeling okay. I knew they had their timeouts, but they got the ball with like 4 minutes, and they took 2 minutes just to get not even close to midfield. I mean, we're right before that play where he threw the interception. I mean, they're at like their own 35, 40 maybe, and they had just wasted so much time. And even with their timeouts, I was feeling okay. I was still very nervous. The Ravens are up 7. So the best they can do is tie, extend the game. You're feeling all right. This isn't the Dean Pease defenses of old where you're just, I got Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, so we'll just play prevent and hope one of them makes a play. I liked them mobbing the logo. I liked that there was no hesitation. It was very much a thing that they were waiting on the moment. to do this. It's like they had discussed it and said, look, when we put this game away, this is how we're going to celebrate. And they obviously didn't know that it was going to be a Peters interception with a minute 40 left on the clock, up by 7. They didn't know the scenario that it would come in, but you like to see that they without saying anything, they just gave each other that look like, yeah, this is that moment. Go back to the playoff game. They did the same thing. They stood on the midfield logo before the game. They did it in the regular season here. And you had the Yonda accusations after that playoff loss, said that Jeff Simmons, a rookie at the time, spit in his face. That's one thing. And, you had the midfield logo thing. It's one, you want to run out of the tunnel and gather there, whatever. I don't care. But when Harbaugh came out and said something to you about it, which he has a right to be upset about it. That's fine. It's his regard. He came out. He was just jawing with you, saying, hey, go to your sideline. And what happened? Malcolm Butler immediately starts barking at Harbaugh. And then around him, a bunch of Titans players start dancing on the logo, start taunting Harbaugh. I've heard some Titans fans say, oh, we were just standing on the logo. We were just having a pregame break there, our huddle. We weren't dancing on the logo. We weren't taunting you. It's like, yes, you were. Watch it back. Harbaugh comes out, and you immediately start laughing at Harbaugh and dancing on the logo and making it like actually showboating about it. So if you thought that the Ravens weren't going to keep that in the back of their mind, I don't know what to tell you. So, even had Jihad Ward was photographed coming off the field, 2 middle fingers to all the Titans fans. I don't know about all that. I might not stoop that low, but everything else I thought was great.
I'm with you. I don't know if I didn't even know about the Jihad Ward thing. The fans had nothing to really do with that. I don't know if I really agree with Jihad doing that. But I mean, it was warranted. I mean, not towards the Titans fans, but towards the Titans themselves. You got into football earlier than I did, but we were like 5 and 6 years old when the Ravens and Titans were at the height of their AFC Central rivalry back in the day. I'll say this: it's been nice to see this rivalry reignited, even though they're not in the same division anymore. But very satisfying after all the drama and everything that the Titans started to see the Ravens get the win here. And you just hope that with all the emotions going on, they just keep all eyes ahead. They did such a good job of that this first week and getting that first win. We'll see if it carries into the divisional round against Buffalo.
Let's move on to the Bills game. Let's preview this. See if we can try to make sense of this, because there is a chance of snow. Just in case you haven't already heard, I'm sure everyone listening has. It's been a big talking point. Ravens play this Saturday night, Orchard Park, New York, calling for a chance of snow. I believe it's under 50% at this point, maybe a max of a couple inches, an inch or two. So nothing, not a blizzard by any means, but keep an eye on that chance of snow as the week progresses. Does it go up? Does it go down? We'll see.
I hate to cut you off, but I'm on my Weather Channel app. I checked it this morning before we started, and as of now, it says a high of 37, low of 31 with partly cloudy and a 20% chance of snow Saturday. I don't know. It's also saying 20% and cloudy on Sunday, so maybe that has decreased a little bit. Lamar has never played in snow, though. So who knows? I guess it's a good thing that it's going down apparently. But if it is Buffalo,
yep, just something to keep. The wind of anything, the wind will be something you want to keep your eye on. Game time wind, because that was a factor in the regular season meeting between these two teams last year. Speaking of Marcus Peters, he sealed that one. He had the pass break up at the end, sealed the game there. Ravens win a close one. Look, I picked the Bills to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And I've gone back and forth on this game quite a bit, but I'm going to pick the Bills. I think the Bills will pull this one out. I definitely think it'll be close, but in the end, I look at that Buffalo offense, and I know the Ravens defense has the personnel. I know they've got the coordinator to scheme something up, but I see this one being close, and I see it being close late, and I just have a vision in my mind here of a 2-minute drill. And Josh Allen, he's different. He's not Ryan Tannehill. He's better. And he's got better weapons too. Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, one of the most underrated possession receivers in the league. John Brown, someone the Ravens are familiar with. So they've got the weapons. And I think they, in a 2-minute drill, they present just a huge threat. And if this one's close, I just see the Bills pulling it out late. That's kind of, when I look into my crystal ball, that's what I'm seeing right now. So not impossible for the Ravens to win. I think the keys are there. You got to keep Josh Allen contained. Don't let him escape the pocket and use his legs at all because, look, the Bills don't really run the ball that well. They got a committee running back situation. Josh Allen scrambles quite a bit to pick up their yards, but they very much are a throwing team. They're very much a team that relies on their passing attack. So it's a different challenge. Last week it was stopping a good runner in Derrick Henry, and this week it's stopping a high-flying passing offense. So I'm going to go with the Bills, but I expect it to be close, and I expect the Ravens to have a chance late in this game. But my gut is telling me that the Bills pull this one out at home.
I'm surprised we're gonna agree on this. Yeah, I mean, the thing the Ravens have going for them is they're more healthy than the Bills are. It's a tough one because the Ravens have won 6 straight and the Bills have won 7 straight. Both these teams have been extremely hot, but when you look at the entire body of work over that time frame, I mean, the Bills have just been completely unstoppable. I have them scoring 37 points in this game, and I came up with that number because I was so impressed by how many points they've scored over this win streak. I took that total and divided it by the amount of games, 7, and an average of 37. So like they're going to put up points. And the Ravens are, for all the advantages Tennessee had over the Ravens early in these matchups, there were still areas of the Titans game and their roster that still had holes. And I do think the Ravens have a legit chance. The Bills defense is nothing to write home about, but that offense is special. So I am going to say the Bills win 37-34 in overtime. I think it's going to be down to the wire.
All right, let's finish up here. Rapid fire picks around the league. I know we're running out of time. Chiefs and Browns, the other AFC game. Is anyone picking the Browns here? I don't think so. I'm certainly not.
I have Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm picking Kansas City. Great win for Cleveland, though. You're absolutely right about that. That's very...
Poor Steelers.
Yeah. What a great Sunday, by the way. Ravens win, and then at night, I got 2 screens going. I got Steelers-Browns going, an absolute beatdown, 28-0 in the first quarter, and Maryland on the other screen, watching them beat a ranked Illinois team on the road. So, great Sunday all around. Next game, go to the NFC. Green Bay, L.A. L.A., I was right about that one. They took down Seattle, but I'm going to go with Green Bay. They were my Super Bowl pick to win it all, so I've obviously got them beating L.A. Jared Goff just not 100%, plus Aaron Donald is now questionable, so I'm going with Green Bay in that one.
We're 3 for 3. I'm going Green Bay too. Let's see if we can go 4 for 4 on the last one.
Bucks and Saints. I'm going with Brady and the Bucks. The Saints won both regular season meetings pretty handedly, by the way. But it's hard to beat a good team 3 times in 1 year. I know that's kind of cliche, but the Saints are just not the juggernaut that they have been the past couple seasons. They're very hot and cold. Even in some of their wins, like their good wins this year, they just have stretches where they look not great. They look really lackluster. I still think the spoon-feeding Taysom Hill into that offense is just so stupid. You have Alvin Kamara, you have Michael Thomas, you have these great players, and they just insist on getting Taysom Hill just way more involved than he needs to be. Plus, I'm not really sold on Drew Brees at this point. I know he's really banged up, but he's really showing his age late in his career. So round 3 between these teams, Brady will take this one.
We're going 4 for 4, Nolan. I mean, you said it there. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season, especially when they have Tom Brady on the other side. And he's got more postseason wins than anybody in NFL history. So I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers here, and another heartbreaking playoff loss for the Saints, I think. And now it looks like Drew Brees is going to be heading off into the sunset.
All right, and we both did well last week. I was 5-1, you were 4-2. So we both did pretty well. We'll see this week if we go 4 for 4 together. That'll do it for episode 136. Appreciate you guys listening as always. Spread the word. Tell people it's never too late to jump on the Charm City Birdwatch bandwagon. Forget the Ravens bandwagon. Jump on the podcast bandwagon. Listen now, subscribe. We're everywhere. Anywhere you listen to a podcast, we're on there. Tell a friend, family member, coworker. You know the deal. We'll be here next week recapping this Ravens game, round 2, divisional round against the Bills, prime time. It's going to be a good one. We'll be here talking to you next week.